Ji-min's hands wouldn't stop shaking. He gripped the datapad tighter, trying to hide his nervousness as the massive doors of the negotiation chamber slid open with a hiss. The air smelled different here, sharp and metallic, reminding him that he was far from Earth and about to meet beings that could crush him without effort. "Relax," Hannah whispered beside him. "They can smell fear, literally." That didn't help. Ji-min swallowed hard and followed Captain Daehyun into the chamber. The room was enormous, designed to accommodate both human and Vegstar delegations. The ceiling stretched high above them, and the walls gleamed with a strange blue metal that seemed to pulse with its own light. The Vegstar were already waiting. Ji-min had seen pictures during the briefings, but nothing prepared him for the reality. They stood at least 7 feet tall, their bodies covered in what looked like natural armor. Their skin had an iridescent quality, shifting between deep purples and blues in the light. Sharp angles defined their faces, and their eyes glowed with an inner fire. But it was the warrior in the center who made Ji-min forget to breathe. She stood taller than the others, her armor decorated with intricate patterns that he guessed represented battle honors. Scars crossed her arms and neck, each one looking deliberate, ceremonial. Her presence filled the room like gravity itself. It shifted in her direction. "That's their war commander," Daehyun muttered under his breath. "Krelva, most decorated warrior in the Vegstar fleet. Whatever you do, don't stare." Ji-min immediately looked down at his datapad. His heart hammered against his ribs. He was just an engineer, a translator assistant. He shouldn't even be in this room. But the regular diplomatic translator had fallen ill, and Ji-min's quick study of the Vegstar language had made him the backup choice. The negotiations began. Daehyun spoke first, welcoming the Vegstar delegation and expressing humanity's hope for peaceful relations. The Vegstar commander responded, her voice deep and resonant. Ji-min's translator device fed him the meaning. Something about strength recognizing strength, about warriors meeting as equals. Everything went smoothly for the first hour. They discussed territorial boundaries, trade routes, and mutual defense pacts. Ji-min's job was simple: verify the translation accuracy and help with technical terms. He stayed quiet, trying to blend into the background. Then his translator started glitching. Small at first, just a flicker in the audio. But as the discussion turned to more complex treaty terms, the device began dropping words entirely. Ji-min tapped it frantically, trying to reset the connection. Nothing worked. "The mineral rights in Sector 7 must be clearly defined," Daehyun was saying. "We need assurance that both parties will respect the boundaries." The Vegstar delegation exchanged looks. Their own translators seemed to be having trouble with the term mineral rights. One of them, a warrior with fewer scars than Krelva, spoke up in broken English. "You speak of taking from ground? For weapons?" "For resources, yes," Daehyun confirmed. Peaceful extraction of Krelva raised her hand, and everyone fell silent. She spoke in rapid Vegstar, too fast for the struggling translators to keep up. Ji-min caught only fragments, something about strength, about claiming, about proving worth. "What is she saying?" Daehyun asked quietly, looking at Ji-min. Panic flooded through him. His translator was dead, showing nothing but static. But he'd studied Vegstar language for months, preparing for this mission. He knew some words, some phrases. He could try. Ji-min stood up, his legs feeling weak. All eyes turned to him. Krelva's glowing gaze fixed on him, and he felt like a mouse before a lion. I think she's asking about our strength," Ji-min said in halting Vegstar. "She wants to know if we are worthy of negotiating as equals." Krelva tilted her head slightly. She spoke again, slower this time, and Ji-min caught more of it. She was questioning whether humans, who seemed so small and fragile, could truly claim territory alongside warriors like the Vexstar. He needed to respond, to defend humanity's position. Jaemin's mind raced through his vocabulary lessons. What was the word for formidable? Something like Valkesh. Or was it Valkresh? The words blurred together in his panic. We may not look strong, Jaemin said carefully in Vextar, but humans have courage. We explore the stars, despite our ... our... He fumbled for the word. Weaknesses? Limitations? Nothing came to mind. Krelva was still staring at him, waiting. The silence stretched too long. He had to say something, despite not being. Jaemin searched desperately for the right term. He wanted to say they weren't as formidable in appearance, but formidable was. What was that word again? In his panic, he grabbed at what sounded right. Valshara, he said. We are not Valshara like the Vexstar warriors. The reaction was immediate and terrifying. Every Vexstar in the room went completely still. Krelva's skin, which had been shifting between purple and blue, suddenly flushed a bright golden color. Her second-in-command took a sharp step backward. The other warriors made sounds that the translator might have called gasps, if warriors like them could gasp. What did I say? Jaemin whispered to Hana, switching back to English. What does Valshara mean? Hana was frantically checking her own datapad, her face going pale. Oh no, no. What? Before she could answer, Krelva stood. The movement was fluid and controlled, but there was something different about her now. The golden flush had spread across her entire upper body, visible even through her armor. She spoke, and this time the words were slow and deliberate. Jaemin didn't need a translator to understand the weight in her voice. Around the room, the other Vexstar had moved into what looked like formal positions, their hands over their chests in some kind of salute or gesture of respect. The human has spoken words of great significance, Krelva said, and somehow Jaemin understood her perfectly, as if the meaning bypassed language entirely. I must respond with appropriate gravity. Captain, Hana whispered urgently to Daehyun. Valshara doesn't mean formidable. It means gorgeous, radiant. It's used exclusively in the context of courtship. Jaemin felt the blood drain from his face. He just called the most dangerous warrior in the Vexstar fleet gorgeous. In front of her entire delegation. In front of his own captain. I demand a private audience with this human, Krelva announced. Her voice carried the weight of command, the kind that expected no argument. Immediately. There are matters that must be discussed between us alone. The golden flush still colored her skin, but her expression was unreadable. Jaemin couldn't tell if she was angry, amused, or something else entirely. All he knew was that he just made the biggest mistake of his diplomatic career, possibly of humanity's first contact with the Vexstar. Daehyun's hand gripped Jaemin's shoulder. Whatever happens in that room, the captain said quietly, remember you're representing all of us. All of humanity. Krelva turned and walked toward a side door. She paused at the threshold, looking back at Jaemin with those glowing eyes. Come, she said simply. Jaemin's legs moved on their own, carrying him toward what he was certain would be either the end of his career or the end of his life. Behind him, he heard Hana whisper something that might have been a prayer. The door closed behind them with a sound like finality itself. The private chamber was smaller than Jaemin expected. The walls were still that same pulsing blue metal, but there were touches that made it feel less like a war room. Soft lights glowed in alcoves, and what looked like battle banners hung from the ceiling. Through a viewport, he could see the stars beyond, cold and distant. Krelva stood by the viewport, her back to him. The golden flush on her skin was fading slowly, returning to the shifting purple and blue pattern. She hadn't said a word since they entered. The silence pressed down on Jae-min like a physical weight. "I'm sorry," he finally said in English, figuring she'd understand through her translator. "I made a terrible mistake. My translation device failed, and I used the wrong word. I meant to say formidable or strong or—" "I know what you meant to say," Krelva interrupted. Her voice was calmer than he expected, without the commanding tone from before. She turned to face him, and he could see her expression more clearly now. She didn't look angry. She looked thoughtful, maybe even amused. Reading alien expressions was impossible. "Then you understand it was an accident," Jae-min said, relief flooding through him. "I deeply apologize for any offense. I'm still learning your language, and under pressure. I confused." "Sit," Krelva said, gesturing to a low bench along one wall. It looked designed for someone much larger than him. Min sat carefully. Krelva remained standing, studying him with those intense eyes. Even now, knowing she wasn't about to kill him, her presence was overwhelming. She really was gorgeous, he thought, then immediately felt his face heat up. That was exactly the kind of thinking that got him into this mess. "Do you know why my skin changed color?" Krelva asked. "No," Jae-min admitted. "Human skin doesn't do that." "Well, it turns red sometimes when we're embarrassed or angry, but not gold like yours did." "Gold is the color of courtship interest among my people," Krelva said bluntly. "When a Vex-Star finds another attractive, when they feel the pull of potential mating, their skin shows this color. We cannot hide it. It is our biology betraying our thoughts." Jae-min's mouth went dry. "You... what?" "I flushed gold because your words triggered an involuntary response," Krelva continued. She paced as she spoke, her movements controlled and precise. "Not because I necessarily feel attraction to you, understand, but because in our culture, when someone speaks the word Valshara to a warrior, especially in a formal setting, it is a declaration of courtship intent. My body responded to the cultural weight of the word before my mind could process that you did not understand its meaning." "Oh no," Jae-min whispered. This was so much worse than he thought. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." "I believe you," Krelva said. She stopped pacing and looked at him directly. "Your face showed pure panic when my delegation reacted. No one would fake that expression if they were making a deliberate courtship claim. So we can just explain to everyone that it was a mistake," Jae-min said hopefully. "Tell them I'm an idiot who doesn't know proper Vex-Star vocabulary, and we can move on with the negotiations." Krelva's expression changed. If he had to describe it in human terms, he'd say she looked uncomfortable. "It is not that simple." "Why not?" "Because you made the declaration publicly, in front of both our delegations. In Vex-Star culture, such declarations cannot be simply dismissed. They must be honored with a response." Jae-min stood up, anxiety making it impossible to sit still. "What kind of response?" "Traditionally, when a warrior receives a courtship declaration, they must either accept it, leading to formal bonding trials, or reject it, which brings great shame to the one who declared. But—" Krelva paused, choosing her words carefully. "You are not Vex-Star. You did not know our ways. This creates a situation without precedent. There has to be a way out of this," Jae-min said. "Some kind of exception for cultural misunderstandings." "There is," Krelva said slowly. "But you will not like it. Tell me anyway." Krelva moved closer, and Jae-min had to resist the urge to step back. She wasn't threatening him, but her sheer size and presence made his instincts scream. "The exception requires that you undergo the 3 traditional trials of courtship. If you complete them successfully, you prove your worthiness, and I can then accept or reject your suit based on your demonstrated qualities. If you fail, you withdraw with honor, and no shame falls on either of us. And if I just refuse to do the trials at all, then you are declaring that your words meant nothing, that you spoke Valshara falsely, as a joke or an insult. In Vexstar culture, this is one of the gravest offenses possible. It would bring dishonor to me personally, as I flushed gold in response. My warriors witnessed my vulnerability. Jae-min ran his hands through his hair, a habit he had when stressed. So my options are either go through with courtship trials for someone I just met, or insult you so badly that it destroys the entire diplomatic mission. Yes, that's insane. That is culture, Krelva said. There might have been sympathy in her voice. I did not make these rules. They existed long before I was born, and they will continue long after I die. But they are absolute among my people. Jae-min walked to the viewport and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, home, his normal life, where the worst problem was a malfunctioning translator. How had everything gone so wrong so fast? What are the trials? He asked quietly. The trial of courage, the trial of wisdom, and the trial of heart, Krelva said. Each tests a different quality essential to a Vexstar warrior's mate. I'm not a warrior. I'm an engineer who got pulled into diplomatic work because I'm good with languages. Apparently not good enough, but still. The trials are not only about combatability, Krelva said. She moved to stand beside him at the viewport, though she kept a respectful distance. They test the qualities that make a worthy partner. Courage is not just fighting. Wisdom is not just strategy. And the heart? She paused. The heart reveals what is true. If I do this, will it save the diplomatic mission? Jae-min asked. It should. Participating in the trials, even as a human, shows respect for our culture. My people will see that your mistake came from ignorance, not malice. And if you complete the trials, successfully or not, honor will be satisfied. Jae-min turned to look at her. This close, he could see details he'd missed before. The scars on her arms weren't random. They formed patterns, like written language. Her eyes, which had seemed purely intimidating before, held something else now. Intelligence, definitely, but also curiosity and maybe concern. Tell me honestly, he said. Do you want me to do this? Or would you prefer I just take the diplomatic hit and refuse? Krelva was quiet for a long moment. The golden flush returned, just slightly, tinting her cheekbones. I am curious, she admitted. About you. About humans. Your species fascinates us. You have no natural weapons, no armor, no enhanced strength. Yet you travel the stars. You face the unknown. You build alliances with beings like us, who could destroy you easily. That takes a different kind of courage. Is that a yes? Jae-min asked. It is an honest answer to your question. Whether you proceed is your choice. I will not force you, but know that I would not object to learning more about what makes humans. What did you accidentally call me? Gorgeous? Was she teasing him? Jae-min couldn't tell if that expression was the Vexstar equivalent of a smile or something else entirely. But there was warmth in her voice that hadn't been there before. I have one condition, Jae-min said. Name it. You have to help me. I don't know your culture, your traditions, what's appropriate or offensive. If I'm going to do this without making everything worse, I need guidance. Krelva nodded. This is acceptable. In fact, it is traditional for the one who receives the declaration to act as mentor during the trials. I would be doing so anyway. Then I'll do it, Jae-min said, surprising himself with how firm his voice sounded. I'll complete your 3 trials. The golden flush deepened on Krelva's skin. You understand this means spending considerable time together. You will need to learn our ways, train in some cases. Prepare yourself mentally and physically. I understand. And you understand that at the end, I may still reject your suit. I'm counting on it, actually, Jae-min said. No offense, but I'm not really ready to bond with an alien warrior I just met. I'm doing this to save the diplomatic mission. Now Krelva definitely seemed amused. No offense taken. I, too, am not certain I wish to bond with a clumsy human who cannot work a simple translation device. Jae-min laughed despite himself. The sound seemed to surprise Krelva. Do Vextar not laugh? He asked. We do, but it sounds different. Deeper, more like ... She made a sound, a rumbling that came from deep in her chest. It reminded him of distant thunder. That's amazing, Jae-min said without thinking. The gold flush spread further. Krelva looked away. Perhaps this will not be as terrible as either of us fears. Come, we must return and announce your decision. The delegations will be waiting. As they walked back toward the main chamber, Jae-min realized his hands had stopped shaking. He was still terrified, still completely out of his depth. But something had shifted. Krelva wasn't just a terrifying alien warrior anymore. She was a person, complex and intriguing. Maybe these trials wouldn't be the disaster he imagined. Or maybe they would be worse. Either way, he was committed now. The announcement had gone better than Jae-min expected. Dae-hyun looked relieved rather than angry. Hannah had given him a thumbs up and nodded "Don't die" across the chamber. The Vextar delegation had responded with what Krelva later told him were gestures of approval. Apparently, accepting the trials showed proper respect for their culture. Now, 3 days later, Jae-min stood outside the Chamber of Truths, preparing for the first trial. Krelva waited beside him, her armor gleaming in the ship's artificial light. Remember, she said, the trial of courage is not about fighting. It is about facing what terrifies you most and standing firm anyway. You've explained this 4 times, Jae-min said, trying to keep his voice steady. I understand the concept. I'm just not sure I'm ready for the reality. No one is ever ready. That is the point. Krelva placed a hand on his shoulder. Her touch was surprisingly gentle for someone so strong. The chamber will create illusions based on your deepest fears. They will seem real. They will feel real. But they cannot harm you. Not physically, just psychologically, Jae-min muttered. Yes, but facing psychological fears builds true courage. Physical bravery is simple. Mental bravery is what separates warriors from fighters. The chamber doors opened with a hiss. Inside was darkness, complete and absolute. Jae-min took a breath and stepped forward. Behind him, the doors sealed shut. For a moment, nothing happened. Then light bloomed around him, and he wasn't on the Vextar ship anymore. He was in a conference room on Earth, one he recognized immediately. The Diplomatic Corps' headquarters. His review board hearing. Jae-min, said the Admiral sitting at the head of the table. Her face was exactly as he remembered. Disappointed. Cold. You've failed again. This isn't real, Jae-min said aloud. I know this isn't real. The mission to the Vextar was a disaster, the Admiral continued as if he hadn't spoken. You destroyed humanity's chances at an alliance. Millions will suffer because of your incompetence. Because you weren't good enough. The words hit harder than any physical blow. This was his deepest fear, the nightmare that woke him in cold sweats. Being responsible for catastrophic failure. Letting everyone down. Proving that he'd never been qualified for any of this in the first place. You're just an engineer, another board member said. She looked like his old professor from university. We gave you a chance, and you proved you weren't worthy of it. The room began to fill with faces. His parents, looking ashamed. Hannah, shaking her head in disappointment. Dae-hyun, angry and betrayed. All of them there because of his failures. Jae-min felt his chest tighten. This was too much. He wanted to run, to escape, to wake up from this nightmare. But Krelva's words echoed in his mind. Standing firm. That was the trial. "You're right," he said loudly, and the room fell silent. "I'm not a perfect diplomat. I'm not a trained warrior. I make mistakes. I confused words and created an interstellar incident." The illusions watched him, waiting. "But I'm trying," Jae-min continued, his voice growing stronger. "I accepted responsibility for my mistake. I'm facing these trials instead of running away. I may fail. I probably will fail. But I'm here, and I'm trying. And that has to count for something." The room began to shake. The faces started to blur and fade. Jae-min kept talking, speaking his fears aloud and acknowledging them without letting them control him. He talked about his insecurities, his doubts, his terror of inadequacy. And with each admission, the illusions lost power. Finally, the chamber returned to darkness, then to normal light. The doors opened. Krelva stood waiting, and beside her were several other Vexstar warriors. They all had their hands over their hearts in that formal gesture. "You spoke your fears aloud," one of the warriors said, sounding impressed. "Many of our own warriors cannot do this. They hide behind silence and pretend courage they do not feel. Humans show their vulnerability," another added. "This is not weakness. This is strength of a different kind." Krelva's skin had that golden tint again. "You have passed the first trial. Rest now. Tomorrow brings the trial of wisdom." The second trial was held in a simulation chamber that rivaled anything human technology could produce. Jae-min stood in what appeared to be a battlefield, though everything was holographic. Krelva explained the scenario. He commanded a small force against overwhelming odds. The goal wasn't victory, but demonstrating sound strategic thinking. "You may choose your approach," she said. "Defensive positions, guerrilla tactics, direct assault, or retreat and regroup. The simulation will adapt to your choices." Jae-min studied the terrain. In traditional military terms, this was unwinnable. The enemy had superior numbers, better positions, and stronger weapons. Any direct engagement would be suicide. Even defensive positions would only delay the inevitable. But humans didn't always think in traditional military terms. That was what made them unpredictable, Krelva had once mentioned. They found unexpected solutions. "I'm not going to fight them," Jae-min said, the watching Vexstar warriors murmured among themselves. Krelva tilted her head. "Retreat is a valid option, but it shows weakness." "Not retreat, negotiation." Jae-min started moving through the simulation, using the terrain not for ambush points, but for communication relays. "If I can establish contact with the enemy commander, I can propose an alternative to bloodshed." "This is a combat simulation," one of the other warriors protested. "The enemy is programmed to attack. Then I'll reprogram my approach." Jae-min worked quickly, using his engineering background to manipulate the simulation's parameters. He set up false targets to draw enemy attention, created decoys to simulate larger forces, and established communication channels that appeared to come from multiple sources. When the enemy forces advanced, they found themselves facing what looked like a massive defensive network, with communication intercepts suggesting reinforcements were coming. Jae-min then broadcast a message offering to share resources instead of fighting over them. The simulation paused. A Vexstar technician checked the parameters. "He's created a scenario where mutual cooperation benefits both sides more than victory would. The enemy AI is calculating that alliance is strategically superior to conquest." "That's not how war works," a warrior grumbled. "It's how diplomacy works," Jae-min said. "And diplomacy is warfare by other means. You achieve your objectives without destroying yourself in the process." Krelva approached the simulation controls and studied what he'd done. The golden flush was very visible now. You used the enemy's strategic programming against itself. You made peace more profitable than war. This is... She searched for words. This is brilliant. And completely unpredictable. Humans are good at unpredictable, Jamin said, feeling a surge of confidence. You have passed the second trial, Krelva announced. The other warriors showed clear signs of respect now, their earlier skepticism replaced with genuine interest. That evening, Krelva invited Jamin to her private quarters. They were surprisingly comfortable, with soft lighting and what looked like art on the walls. Intricate designs that might have been battle plans, or might have been something else entirely. Are those paintings? Ji-Min asked. Poetry, Krelva said, written in the old style. Each symbol represents both a word and a concept. This one speaks of the first sunrise after a long battle. This one describes the sound of home. I didn't know Vextar wrote poetry. Most species don't. They see us as warriors and assume that is all we are. She touched one of the designs gently. We have art, music, literature. We love beauty. But we must be warriors first, because the galaxy is dangerous. Jamin moved closer to examine the poetry. It really is beautiful. The designs, I mean. The symbols. Thank you. That golden flush again. Krelva seemed more comfortable with it now, or at least less surprised by it. I created these during my recovery from battle wounds. It helped me remember there is more to life than fighting. They sat together, and Krelva told him about Vextar culture beyond warfare. She spoke of their festivals, their bonding ceremonies, their belief that strength without wisdom led to destruction. Ji-Min shared human stories in return, talking about Earth's diversity, humanity's art, their constant struggle to explore despite their physical limitations. Your people are strange, Krelva said, but her tone was fond rather than critical. You should not survive in this galaxy. You are fragile, small, weak by our standards. Yet you thrive. How? Adaptability, Jamin said. We can't outfight most species, so we outthink them. We build alliances, create technology, find unexpected solutions. Like in the simulation, it is a worthy approach. Krelva paused. I must confess something. When you first spoke Valshara, I was angry. Not at you, but at the situation. I thought it would be a burden, these trials with a human who did not understand our ways. But now, double quotes, now I find myself hoping you pass the third trial as well. Jamin's heart beat faster. The trial of heart. You still haven't explained exactly what that involves. Truth, Krelva said simply. Complete honesty about intentions and feelings, spoken before both our peoples. It is the most difficult trial because it requires emotional courage. You must speak what is in your heart, knowing you may be rejected. And I must respond with equal honesty. What if I don't know what's in my heart yet? Jamin asked quietly. Then you must figure it out before we enter that chamber. Krelva stood, signaling the evening was ending. Rest well. Tomorrow we prepare for the final trial. And tomorrow we both must be ready to face truth. As Jamin left her quarters, he realized something had changed between them. She wasn't just the intimidating warrior anymore. She was Krelva, a person with dreams and fears and unexpected depths. And he was starting to care about what she thought of him, beyond just completing the trials. That realization terrified him more than any simulation could. The Grand Council chamber was packed. Every Vextar warrior on the flagship had gathered, along with the entire human delegation. Ji-Min stood in the center of the vast room, feeling smaller than he'd ever felt in his life. Krelva stood across from him, her armor polished to a mirror shine, her expression unreadable. Daehayan had pulled Jamin aside that morning with advice. Whatever you say in there, make it count. This isn't just about you anymore. Both our peoples are watching. Now, with hundreds of eyes on him, Jae-min understood the weight of those words. The trial of heart wasn't just personal. It was political, diplomatic, and cultural. All at once, an elder Vex-Star warrior stepped forward, her scales marked with age and countless battle scars. "We gather to witness the final trial," she announced in a voice that carried to every corner of the chamber. "The trial of heart, where truth is spoken and intentions revealed. The human Jae-min has completed the trials of courage and wisdom. Now he must speak what lies within, and Krelva must answer with equal honesty." The chamber fell silent. Jae-min's mouth was dry. He'd practiced what to say, but all his prepared words fled his mind. He looked at Krelva, and she gave him the smallest nod. Encouragement? Permission? He wasn't sure. "I'll start with the truth everyone already knows," Jae-min began, his voice shaking slightly. "I made a mistake. I used the wrong word because I was nervous, and my translator failed, and I panicked. I never meant to declare courtship. I barely knew Krelva existed 10 minutes before I said it." Some of the Vex-Star warriors shifted uncomfortably. Hannah covered her face with her hands. But Jae-min continued. "But here's the truth that's harder to say. Over these past days, going through the trials, learning about your culture, spending time with Krelva, I've come to genuinely admire her. Not just as a warrior, though she's clearly exceptional at that, but as a person. She's patient when she doesn't have to be. She's curious about things outside warfare. She writes poetry about sunrises after battles." The golden flush appeared on Krelva's skin. Her second in command, a warrior named Thanara, watched with narrowed eyes. "I don't know if what I feel is attraction or just deep respect," Jae-min said honestly. "I'm still learning to tell the difference when it comes to someone from another species. But I know that I enjoy her company. I know that I want to learn more about her. And I know that if things were different, if we'd met under normal circumstances without this whole trial situation, I'd still want to know her better." He took a breath. "So yes, my original words were a mistake. But standing here now, having been through everything we've been through, I can say honestly that calling Krelva gorgeous wasn't entirely wrong. She is remarkable, in ways I'm still discovering." The silence that followed felt eternal. Then Krelva stepped forward. The golden flush had deepened, spreading across her visible skin like liquid light. "My turn for truth," she said, her voice steady despite the visible emotional response. "When this human first spoke Valshara, I was humiliated. The involuntary flush revealed my body's response before my mind could control it. I felt exposed in front of my warriors, my equals, my subordinates. I wanted to be angry with him." She walked slowly toward Jae-min, her movements controlled and deliberate. "But as the trials progressed, I saw something I did not expect. Humans are not warriors by nature. They do not have our strength, our armor, our combat instincts. Yet this one faced his deepest fears and spoke them aloud. He solved an impossible military scenario through creative thinking rather than force. These are not the actions of a weak being." Krelva stopped a few feet from Jae-min. "I have fought many battles. I have defeated warriors from a dozen species. I carry scars from victories and near defeats. I am called formidable, terrifying, unstoppable. But this human looked at me and saw something else. He saw the poetry I write in private. He saw the person beneath the armor, and he chose to know me better, despite having every reason to be terrified." The room was utterly silent now. Even the humans seemed to be holding their breath. "So my truth is this," Krelva said. "I do not know if what I feel is proper courtship attraction, or simply the fascination of meeting someone genuinely different. But I know that I wish to continue knowing Jae-min. I know that his presence challenges me to think differently. And I know that the idea of him completing these trials and simply walking away from our connection feels ... wrong. Jae-min's heart pounded. Was she saying what he thought she was saying? Before either could speak further, Thanara stepped forward. I must object. The elder warrior who'd opened the ceremony looked surprised. On what grounds? On the grounds that this entire situation is improper, Thanara said firmly. A human cannot court a Vexstar warrior. They are too different, too weak, too ... She struggled for words. Too other. Krelva is one of our finest commanders. She should bond with a worthy Vexstar warrior, not some alien who stumbled into our customs by accident. Several other warriors murmured agreement. The human delegation tensed. Daehyun's hand moved to his sidearm, though Jae-min knew he'd never actually draw it. You speak of tradition, Krelva said, her voice taking on the commanding tone Jae-min recognized from their first meeting. You speak of worthiness, but traditions exist for reasons, and those reasons must be examined. She turned to address the entire assembly. We Vexstar pride ourselves on strength. But what is strength? Is it only physical power? Is it only combat skill? Because if that is all we value, we limit ourselves severely. Krelva gestured to Jae-min. This human has no natural weapons. His species evolved as prey animals on a planet that tried constantly to kill them. They should have died out long ago. Yet they didn't. They survived through adaptability, creativity, cooperation, and relentless curiosity. They built tools to overcome their physical limitations. They developed technology that lets them travel between stars despite having fragile bodies that die in vacuum. The golden flush brightened as she spoke with growing passion. They explore the galaxy knowing they are outmatched by nearly every other species they meet. They seek alliances with beings who could crush them. They face the unknown with courage, born not from physical strength, but from mental resilience. Is this not a form of strength worthy of respect? Thanara stood firm. It is clever, I grant you, but it is not warrior strength. No, Krelva agreed. It is human strength. And perhaps we have been too narrow in defining what strength means. She looked around the chamber. How many times have we relied solely on our combat abilities and suffered for it? How many conflicts could have been avoided with human-style diplomacy? How many solutions have we missed because we only think in terms of warfare? You speak of weakness disguised as wisdom, Thanara argued. You would have us become soft like them. I speak of strength taking many forms, Krelva countered. A warrior who only knows combat is limited. A warrior who understands multiple approaches to problems is truly formidable. This is why the trial of wisdom exists, Thanara. Because wisdom without courage is cowardice, but courage without wisdom is simply violence. The elder warrior stepped forward again. This debate touches on deep matters of culture and tradition. Thanara, do you formally challenge Krelva's right to complete this courtship? Thanara hesitated, then straightened. I invoke the ancient law. I demand a champion's duel. If Krelva truly believes in this path, let her prove it through combat. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Krelva's skin lost some of its golden flush, turning darker. Jae-min didn't understand the full implications, but he could tell this was serious. You would fight me? Krelva asked quietly. Your commander? Your oath sister? I would save you from making a mistake that dishonors us all, Thanara said, and there was genuine concern in her voice. You are influenced by the novelty of this situation. A duel will clear your head, remind you of who you truly are. No, the word came from Jae-min, loud and clear. Everyone turned to look at him. There won't be a duel. You have no authority here, human, Thanara said dismissively. Maybe not in your traditional power structure, Jamin agreed. But this whole situation started because of me, and I won't let people fight over it. There has to be another way. What are you proposing? The elder warrior asked, sounding genuinely curious. Jamin's mind raced. This was like the combat simulation, but with real stakes. He needed an unexpected solution, something that changed the parameters of the problem. I propose a fourth trial, he said. One that I design. If Thanara and the other objectors participate, and we pass it, then the objections are withdrawn. If we fail, I withdraw my suit with honor, and Krelva is released from any obligation. This is not traditional, Thanara said. Nothing about this situation is traditional, Jamin pointed out. But traditions have to start somewhere, right? Maybe this can be the beginning of a new tradition. One that honors both Vextar and human values. The elder warrior looked intrigued. What would this fourth trial entail? I'll explain once I have permission to propose it formally, Jamin said. But I promise it will test the qualities that both our cultures value. Courage, wisdom, and the willingness to work together despite differences. Krelva's skin had returned to its golden flush, brighter than ever. She was looking at Jamin with an expression he couldn't quite read, but it felt warm, approving, maybe even proud. I accept this proposal, Krelva announced. If Jamin can create a trial that satisfies both our peoples, we should hear it. Thanara looked uncertain now. Several other warriors were nodding thoughtfully. The elder warrior raised her hand for silence. Very well. Jamin of humanity, you have 1 day to prepare your fourth trial. We will reconvene tomorrow to see what you have designed. This council is adjourned. As the assembly dispersed, Krelva approached Jamin. They stood close enough that he could see the intricate patterns of her scales. The exact shade of gold her flush had become. That was either very brave or very foolish, she said quietly. Probably both, Jamin admitted. But I meant what I said in my truth. I'm not ready to walk away from this connection we're building. Neither am I, Krelva said. So make your trial count. Show them what humans are truly capable of. Jamin had spent the entire night working. Hana helped, along with Daehyon and 3 Vextar technicians that Krelva had assigned to him. Together, they'd created something unprecedented, a real crisis simulation that would require genuine cooperation between humans and Vextar to solve. Now, standing in the observation deck of the Horizon's Edge, Jamin watched as both delegations assembled. The simulation would take place in real space, using actual ships and actual problems. No holograms, no safety nets beyond basic emergency protocols. Are you sure about this? Daehyon asked quietly. If something goes wrong, people could actually get hurt. That's why it'll work, Jamin said. The Vextar respect real danger. A simulation they can dismiss as fake, but this proves we're serious. Krelva entered the observation deck, followed by Thanara and several other warriors. The golden flush on Krelva's skin had become almost constant now. Jamin wondered if she was aware of it, or if it just happened automatically when he was near. Explain your trial, the elder warrior commanded. She'd chosen to observe personally, a sign of how significant this had become. Jamin activated the display. 3 hours ago, we seeded this sector with a realistic asteroid field simulation. The asteroids are actually drones, programmed to behave exactly like real space debris, complete with unpredictable trajectories and collision physics. Mixed into the field are resource containers that both our fleets need for essential repairs. He highlighted several points on the map. The Vextar flagship needs the medical supplies in containers 3, 7, and 12. The Horizon's Edge needs the fuel cells in containers 4, 9, and 15. But here's the problem. The asteroid field is too dense for any single ship to navigate safely. The asteroids are moving in patterns that make traditional navigation impossible. Danara studied the display. So we fight through the obstacles. This is a test of piloting skill. No, Jae-min said. It's a test of cooperation. I've designed the field so that success requires both human and Vextar ships working together. Your ships have better shields and armor, but our sensors can predict asteroid movements more accurately. Your weapons can destroy larger obstacles, but our smaller ships can fit through gaps yours cannot. He pulled up another screen. I'm proposing mixed crews on 4 shuttle teams. Each team has 2 Vextar warriors and 2 humans. They navigate the field together, retrieve the supplies, and return safely. The trial is passed if all teams succeed. It fails if we lose any team, or if either fleet doesn't get the supplies they need. You're asking us to trust humans with our lives, a Vextar warrior said skeptically. Yes, Jae-min agreed, and asking humans to trust Vextar with theirs. Isn't that what any real alliance requires? Krelva stepped forward. I will lead one team personally. Thanara, you will lead another. The human Jae-min will be on my team. You would risk yourself in this? Thanara asked. If I'm asking others to trust this approach, I must demonstrate my own trust. Krelva looked at Jae-min. Besides, I am curious to see how humans handle real danger rather than simulated scenarios. The elder warrior considered for a long moment. This trial is accepted. Begin preparations immediately. 20 minutes later, Jae-min found himself strapped into a shuttle seat next to Krelva. Across from them were Hana and another Vextar warrior named Kesra. The shuttle was cramped with 2 species that had very different size requirements. Sensors online, Hana reported, her fingers flying across the human console. I'm tracking 17 major obstacles in our immediate path and predicting their trajectories. Shields at maximum, Kesra announced from the Vextar weapons station. Weapons ready to clear debris. Krelva took the pilot position, her hands surprisingly delicate on the controls despite their size. Jae-min, you coordinate between Hana's predictions and my piloting. Tell me where to fly and when. The shuttle launched into the asteroid field. Immediately, Jae-min understood why this required cooperation. The asteroids moved in patterns that seemed random, but followed complex mathematical models. Hana could predict them, but not fast enough to pilot simultaneously. Krelva could pilot with incredible precision, but without prediction, she'd be reacting instead of planning. Hard right in 3 seconds, Jae-min called out, reading Hana's data. Then climb 30 degrees and level out. Krelva executed the maneuver perfectly. An asteroid the size of a car tumbled through the space they'd just occupied. Large obstacle ahead, Kesra warned. Too big to avoid. Can you destroy it? Jae-min asked. Yes, but the debris field will be dangerous. Hana, can you plot a path through the debris? If Krelva can execute turns in less than 2-second intervals, I can, Krelva confirmed. Then do it. Kesra, fire on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. The Vextar weapons fired, shattering the asteroid into hundreds of smaller pieces. Hana's predictions came rapid fire, and Jae-min translated them into piloting commands. Krelva's hands moved in a blur, threading the shuttle through gaps that seemed impossibly small. They emerged on the other side, unscathed. Through the communication channel, Jae-min could hear the other teams reporting similar successes and challenges. The Nara's team had just navigated a particularly dense cluster using the same cooperative approach. Resource container ahead, Hana announced. That's Container 7, one of the medical supply units. How do we retrieve it? Krelva asked. Carefully, Jae-min said. Kesra, can you use a tractor beam to pull it in? Yes, but I'll need the ship stable. No maneuvering while I lock on. Hana, how long do we have before the next major obstacle? 43 seconds? That's cutting it close, Krelva said, but there was excitement in her voice rather than fear. Let's do it. She brought the shuttle to a perfect hover. Keshra activated the tractor beam. Ji-Min watched the countdown in his head, aware of an asteroid approaching from their flank. 30 seconds. 20. The container wasn't moving fast enough. Hana. Can you hack the container's stabilization system? Make it lighter? On it, her fingers flew. The container's internal gravity field adjusted, reducing its effective mass. The tractor beam pulled it in faster. 10 seconds, Jamin warned. Got it. Keshra announced as the container locked into the cargo bay. Moving now, Krelva said. And the shuttle shot forward, just as the asteroid passed through their previous position. Over the next hour, all 4 teams worked through similar challenges. Each time, success came from combining species-specific strengths. Human sensors and Vextar shields. Human ingenuity and Vextar precision. Human flexibility and Vextar determination. When Jamin's team retrieved their final container, he noticed something on Hana's sensors. There's debris heading toward Thanaris' shuttle. Their angle won't let them see it in time. Krelva didn't hesitate. Warning them now. She opened communications. Thanara, hard dive immediately. Why? Came the response. Trust me. A pause that felt eternal. Then Thanaris' shuttle dove, and a cluster of asteroids passed through the space where they'd been. Thank you, Thanara said quietly. Thank the human sensors and the human who was watching other teams instead of just our own. Krelva replied, when all 4 teams returned safely to the observation deck. Supplies secured and crews intact, the assembled delegations erupted in cheers. Vextar and humans celebrating together, the sound mixing into something entirely new. The elder warrior stepped forward and silence fell. The 4th trial is complete. All teams succeeded through cooperation and trust. This demonstrates that humans and Vextar can work as equals, each contributing unique strengths. She turned to Thanara. Do you withdraw your objection? Thanara looked at Jamin, then at Krelva, then back at her fellow warriors. I do. This human has proven his worth, not through becoming like us, but through being fully himself. That is a strength I did not expect to respect. She approached Jamin directly. I apologize for my doubt. You saw danger approaching my team when you could have focused only on your own success. You chose to help anyway. That is warrior thinking, even if you are not a warrior. Thank you, Jamin said, meaning it. The elder warrior raised her hands. The trials are complete and past. The courtship between Krelva and Jamin may proceed or conclude as they choose, with the blessing of both our peoples. As the formal ceremony ended and crowds dispersed, Krelva pulled Jamin aside to a quieter corner of the observation deck. Through the viewport, stars stretched endlessly. So, she said, and her skin was so golden it almost glowed. The obligation is fulfilled. The trials are past. You are free to walk away with honor. I know, Jamin said. But I don't want to walk away. He took a breath. These past weeks have been terrifying and exhausting and completely insane. But they've also been amazing. Getting to know you, learning about your culture, seeing how our peoples can work together. I meant what I said during the trial of heart. I want to keep knowing you better. Even though I could accidentally break your fragile human bones if I hug you too hard. Even though maybe we should establish some safety protocols for physical affection. Krelva's rumbling laugh filled the space between them. I would like that. Not the courtship obligation, but genuine courtship. Learning about each other without trials or cultural requirements forcing us. Just 2 people exploring a connection. Just 2 people, Jamin agreed, who happened to be from different species, different worlds, different evolutionary paths. But who choose each other anyway? Krelva finished. She held out her hand, palm up, in what Jamin had learned was a Vexstar gesture of offering. So, would you like to court me properly? No obligations, no trials, just honest connection? Jamin placed his much smaller hand in hers. I would, though I have no idea how to court a Vexstar warrior. And I have no idea how to court a human engineer, Krelva said. I suppose we'll figure it out together. 6 months later, Jamin stood in a cultural exchange center that hadn't existed before the Alliance. Half the building used human design principles, half used Vexstar architecture.